West Nile, hello Uganda, hello Africa, hello world. So I just want to appreciate your immense support. I want to appreciate your involvement, your engagement. We've been getting feedback and we are so honored that you are as passionate about this as we are. So welcome to the Trinity Show. Welcome to this episode. And I am your host, Trinity Peace Gorondru. And as you know, we are running this series connecting to the cause of gender-based violence. We've been running it and we'll be concluding it at the end of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So I hope you're learning a lot. I hope you're getting something, you're learning something out of this. Yeah, so thank you so much. And as they say, education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. I believe this is true, and I also believe that it is true, especially when it comes to the fight against gender-based violence. So, what better way is there to change our community than to influence the mind of young learners, even young and old learners, and also engaging teachers, people who train and people who teach our young people. So today, our guest for today is, I want to introduce him shortly. He's a man with many hats. He's an educationalist, he's a dedicated teacher. He's also the education minister of Lugbara Kari. Education minister, sports and education. Yes.
State
Okay.
minister.
So for many of us who don't know Lugbara Kari, I think it is a body that unifies. It's a body that unifies all the chiefdoms, the clans, the sub-tribes of Lugbara. Yeah, because I know maybe there's some other people who also don't know much about it. And you're also a comedian, so you're a man of many hats, and I want to officially welcome you for this program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So to the audience, get ready to learn a lot as we dive into this conversation today. So, sir, you are most welcome.
Thank you.
Could you please introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself, your background, where you come from, and what you do?
Yes, by names, I'm called Honorable Aguta Fred Endraa, State Minister of Education and Sports, Lugbara Kari, and a teacher by profession and practicing my profession in Kizomoro Secondary School in Marcha District. I'm so grateful that today I've been hosted here for a talk about the gender-based violence, which is so consistent in our families, in our communities, and so on. I think I will give my best because these are some of the areas where Lugbara Kari causes a lot of meetings and the trainings for people in the various rural settings. So I'm so
Thank
grateful.
you so much, Honorable. I am so honored to host you today. So can you briefly tell us where you come from, maybe the particular place?
Yes, I happen to come from Maracha, in a newly created curve, the sub-county from Yivu, original Yivu, that is now Alikwa sub-county, which is a famous sub-county in Maracha district because it is where the first Belgians settled and when this region was part of Congo Brazzaville. Now that it is in Uganda, and I happen to be glad that I come from such a historical site. Yes.
Yes, so thank you so much for that introduction. Now, as we dive straight into our discussion today, I know you're a teacher by profession.
Yes.
You know, teachers shape our world, like the teachers shape our world a lot. Because right from childhood, you're the ones who interact with us, when we're still young. You train us on a lot. And I know when it comes to the issue of gender-based violence, you're also in the front line because you nurture young minds, you train them. And I know you've interacted with cases, probably you've interacted with cases connecting to gender-based violence in your line, in your field. So briefly tell us what gender-based violence means to you and the fight against it.
Yeah, gender-based violence to me is a threat and the damage inflicted on someone based on sexual difference or identity, which at the end of the day impacts on this person psychologically, emotionally, and sometimes also physically. And it is so much generated because of vulnerability of these victims. Because when somebody is so vulnerable, you will get to realize that any threat or any damage inflicted on him will cause fear, and this person succumbs to the dangers of this gender-based violence. I will say, in most cases, in the communities we are living, it is a male girl child, in fact, the female, who are so much exposed to these threats. So I think it is so much in our societies. As I did say earlier, it is vulnerability. A threat times the vulnerability over perception or capacity is not being reached now turns to be what is called gender-based violence.
Okay. So what does the fight of gender-based violence mean to you?
To me, I think it is very necessary because if you look at humanity, even in the books of the Bible, we are supposed to be equal. Equality does not mean that the rights of other persons should be violated. And so when we have actions or risks which violate or damage the other persons, then I think we are not just to this person. Therefore, I will say, recommend that this engagement into fight against gender-based violence is a very, very, very good thing, and it must really go down up to grassroots. Much as in urban settings, it is fairly okay improving, but I think the rural setup still has a lot of it. I will urge that the actors in it should really go down to this grassroots and they see that everybody is looked at as one person.
Yeah, I like the point of us in going up to the grassroots and the fight of gender-based violence should not only end here. We shouldn't be maybe limited to just maybe online and that kind of thing, but we need to go down to the grassroots, because I also believe that is also where it is really, really getting out of hand. Yes. So coming back to this, I know as a teacher, you interact with young learners in school, and probably, as I mentioned before, maybe some of them could be victims of this, because children could also be victims, and then or survivors. You see, so what are some of the forms of gender-based violence that maybe you have witnessed in schools or in an educational institution, kind of setup of recent? What are some of the forms that you've witnessed?
In schools, I do not really sit so much in this region of ours.
Okay.
However, there are cases of these gender-based violences which occur because there are threats some of these students are getting from some of these teachers. You get to bear it with me that in many of these private schools, there are cases where, I'm not going to give an example, make a mention of names. There are cases where you'll get some teachers also cohabiting with the students. They have relationships. If they do not have direct relationship, a word of marks as a result of accepting to go with them. And when this is not really properly being done, these young ladies always live in a threat, and they sometimes even drop from school. It impacts on that. Then there are also cases where in educational institutions, accessing opportunities for job recruitment, some of these heads also subject the female teachers for demands for sex and so on. And when this is not provided, normally these persons are left in a state of despair. Therefore, those are few which I realize. However, there are those other minor ones which occur. For example, girl child, I would say, basically, you see, in the rural setup, the school where I am is in the village. There are cases where many of these day scholars who are ladies arrive a little bit late. And some of these teachers do not really understand that this young lady could have been committed in doing family duties where the moms are not around, and they will begin to develop some hatred against them, threaten them, and so on. So those are one of the threats I identify among the students in the rural settings in the schools.
In the schools, yes. So you mentioned a few of them, and you also mentioned something connecting to maybe teachers using the opportunity of giving like marks and maybe sexually harassing the students so that they're able to give them marks. So is it the example you gave was connecting to maybe male teachers versus female students? So
Yes.
have you heard of any case maybe where it is vice versa?
Such cases I've never had it.
You've never had?
Might be because females also know how to keep their secrets. Sometimes the male teachers will always exploit their secrets, and that's where sometimes we come to know. And at the end of the day, I've not physically seen an elderly teacher or a teacher marrying a young boy, but I've seen cases where teachers marrying young ladies. So it gives me an impression that such kind of violations are there.
All right. So coming to the next point of discussion. Okay, as a teacher, I know you've been professionally trained, to monitor students and see in case maybe if there's anything wrong with them. I think professionally you are trained in that line to be able to look at how their psychology is and how their concentration level is and that kind of thing. So what signs of abuse maybe could you be able to identify in a student? Maybe this person is being abused, whether within the school setting or at home. What are those signs or those indications that maybe could be a pointer that other teachers or other students or the community or even parents should pay attention to?
Yeah, there are many cases where parents will come in fact, actors trying to fight these gender-based violences need to identify our rights. You see, when I talk about risk, risk is a specific violation or damage of somebody's rights. There are many cases where these rights have been violated. And you'll get to realize that there are situations where freedom of association has not been relaxed for girl child vis-a-vis boy child. You'll get to yes, freedom to education equally is there because a girl child is the late comer to school, is the earlier goer to the home and the straight away to the kitchen. While this boy child is late to go and relax and they meet other friends. Then again, also exposure to leisure and so on. There are restrictions on a girl child when the boy child is left to go. There are many aspects where girl child is always contained and controlled, contained, which makes at the end of the day the person to develop signs of not being free. Somebody is always fearful. Somebody, even participation in class becomes rather difficult because you guess that this person has an issue attached to her rights. So there are various aspects where you will see that somebody is a shy not because somebody is irrespective, but has some psychological torture. Yes.
So maybe shyness or not being able to open up.
Yes.
Could be
attention in classroom is very short. The person is much more moody. The moods are of misery and so on, thinking of work at home, are waiting for her and so on. This can be depicted. And I think it also relates directly to their performance. You get to realize the girl child performance sometimes is not okay. Yeah. This is also seen sometimes in young ladies who happen to come from relative other than from their really parents. And you'll get to realize that this person is shipped a lot of work to be done, and the person is sometimes subjected to go and do other things. The interest for education begins to drop. You will see that this person is not okay. They exist a lot in society.
Yeah. So in your explanation, I noted that you mentioned so much connecting to housework and the girl child, connecting to housework and the girl child. So what do you think in that line, because you're a teacher, how your student is at home is a concern to you? So do you think somehow parents need to adjust when it comes to housework? Maybe boys should also somehow be involved, or it now comes on the issue of culture? What is your take on that?
I would say the current contemporary world we are living in you'll get to realize that there are now many unmarried singles. There are many cases of divorce and separations. In it, there are men now who have taken up to do some of this work. Even me personally, I delayed a little bit. I didn't eat because I was cooking. And I'm always putting it to my children that my boys will also cook equal like the girls, because it's not only be the girls to be cooking. What if time will come that they will get married and these boys are not going to get married? Who will cook for them? I think we are not going to live there like rocks. So one time we may also pass on, and these children are left, so they go and they begin to eat in rubbish pits. So I see that parents will get to see to that boy's child must also involved in doing these activities. Basically, I see a lot of value in a girl child, because I've seen many homes have run because of girl child. Giving priorities to girl child in education, in accessing jobs and so on, payable jobs, I think is a very important thing, because we have seen how girl child has really put some families right. Yeah.
Yes. So connecting to that, looking at the general view of our education setup, do you think a lot is being done in ensuring that our learners are not only educated, protected, but also engaged in the area of gender-based? But do you think the government is doing enough, or the schools are doing enough as of now?
I imagine the schools are not doing enough. Equally, the government is not doing enough, because the state capacity to enhance, to fight gender-based violence is not really, to me, maximal. And it stands as a gap, because many of these victims of gender-based violence have not, a sign of sometimes they fear to report cases of attempted gender-based violence. People say off. I think the government, the schools have not really done enough. The strength of the community and the unity and the leadership of the community is not doing enough to see to it that a level ground is set for the fight against this gender-based violence.
Okay. So how do you think schools and educational institutions should be empowered to become better at this?
I think I would say it should start with the educationists, specifying particularly the teachers. The teachers themselves needed to be so exemplary to the students, exemplary to their families. And it so happens that sometimes some of these young girls who come late to school happen to come from staff quarters, and they are staying with the teachers. If a teacher is now doing that, you let boys come to school and you are causing the young girl doing some work at home, I think that way doesn't go away. Secondly, I will also really request that the actors in fight against gender-based violence should also have some initiative of going to schools and train teachers about this, because some of these teachers are not really aware of what is going on. For example, on aspects of what, who, when, where some of these gender-based situations are applicable. Because you can't talk about it without knowing where it happens and who inflicts it, how. I think people needed to be talked about it, that trained about it, that such that I think we shall also register better improvement on the fight against gender-based violence.
So basically, we need more sensitization in schools, in educational institutions. Yes. And I really do agree with that. Because, you know, when we are at school, that is when our minds are open to learn.
Yes.
Connecting to students. You find that our brains are young. That's when we are, you know, open to learn so much. That's why a lot of things, the YDX, you know, Napoleon Bonaparte, you find that we can easily recall when was he born and that kind of thing. But then if someone is maybe out of school, I think if you've noticed, when someone is out of school, now you find some of those things, it's hard to grasp.
It is.
So I strongly believe that using our schools and involving our young learners, it's one of the ways that we can actually bring change
Yes,
in this particular area. So now, what do you think? What do you think? Okay, apart from the empowerment side of it, let us come to the gaps.
Yes.
In now our general region, leave alone the school, leave alone the school. What do you think the gap is in West Nile has a region, or Maracha, where you come from, has a district? What do you think is the gap against gender-based violence in our region?
The gaps I will talk about, I always say one is ignorance.
Ignorance.
Many of us are not aware that we have been exploited and that there's gender-based violence against us because we have never been sensitized about it.
So basically, you even don't know that it is happening to
you. Yes, you don't know it. You don't know that it is happening to you, but you suffer it. For those who are known to be educated, they are learned, but they're inflicting this kind of violations against the people. Those who are continuously doing this gender-based violence, and yet they're educated, I think it will be important rules and the penalties needed to be put there. If not, these perpetrators, I think some of them will be exposed in the media and so on, such that other people will see it as a deterrent way of trying to stop or fight gender-based violence. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, connecting to that, still in the same line, getting these people to face justice, we find that from our research, as you know, we're trying to carry out this research, we came to realize that the justice system is a little bit limited in an area. Like, for example, in Arua district, or maybe in Arua city, and we don't have adequate shelters. You know, gender-based violence is a very technical matter. Sometimes it involves life and death. I think even in our communities, we've seen people who have been terribly hurt. We've even had cases of people even losing their lives. You know, so this discussion connecting to gender-based violence, it's actually like connecting to life and death. So one of the cases that we came across was the lack of adequate shelters. You find that, for example, a mother is being physically abused, let's say by the husband. Now she is being physically abused, and this man is the one, she is staying in the home of this man because this is her husband. Now, when she reports the case to police, you know how the justice system works. When someone is reported, you know, the court issue, sometimes the person is not arrested immediately. They have to first do follow-ups and evidences and here and there. So because of that, you find that we actually had of situations where someone will report a case to police and it will be identified that this is actually violence, this is abuse. But the person will request that please don't follow it up, because if you do follow it up, I will be going back home to this same person. And then we are lacking facilities where maybe someone can be brought and the person stays for some time until the case is followed up. And I think it's even worse for children, because if it is your guardian, if it is your own parent, because their parents actually abuse their children in terrible ways, unspeakable ways. And then we find that now the child cannot mention it. Or if the child reports and then they will, okay, we are still trying to follow up, where will the child actually go? So what is your comment on such cases, how complicated it is to, you know, solve or try to get a solution to some of these issues?
Yeah, I think the justice we have today has a lot of aspects which have been compromised. Such a case, to be sincere, as I did say earlier, reporting such cases, there's the aspect of silence. particularly among us, the women, married women, they will imagine that at the end of the day, I think they all take it because they are mothers. Sometimes they imagine that when they report such cases, the parent will be taken. In fact, we have got something in our culture. The Lugbara Kari has it, which we're already pronouncing as the cultural institution, that a case of any violence at home is not supposed to be reported to LC, neither to the police. I think that's so misleading. The Lugbara Kari culture has come up to pronounce that because we're looking at a traditional justice mechanism. If going to police is now that at the end of the day, it will have some traditional impacts on children, then we're already advocating that no, such cases of that kind should be reported only that the cultural or traditional justice mechanism should really come out and they give penalties to these victims who are trying to inflict it on women, girl child, and so on. Then there is that situation, as I said earlier, failure to access justice, the state capacity to protect. Could also arise because of ignorance or being uneducated. You belittle yourself. How will I go to police? Police is speaking English. I don't know English. Now I know Lugbara. How will I explain? You see, such really also impact on this fight against the gender-based violence. I will also say another gap could be failure on alliance or links to bigger structures. And this is always at a grassroots. I witness it only happens so much in this refugee kind of area, settlements. In our communities, I have not seen literally lively that people go and speak about it. Only that of late, the Lugbara Kari is trying to do dialoguing on some of this aspect of gender-based violence. You know, there are so many because of inheritance, because of land issues, conflicts. Women are denied decision making on their daughter at marriage. Women are denied; they are not supposed to talk. You know, those are all violations of rights of these mothers. A mother is not allowed to come and sit and also discuss the marriage aspects, the price of her only daughter. She kept for around 9 months. You see, how will this mother go? So we are saying we need to really come out and see to it that these mothers are left sometimes to share some of these decision makings because it's not only men to do that. We also say inadequate community strength, unity, and the leadership. These leaders we could have them at the LC levels and so on. Some of these people are not really confident. They are not knowledgeable about what they're supposed to do. There's a problem with these LCs. I would say at a later time, the government should really switch it that whoever becomes LC1 must be somebody who has completed at least all level. Because there you will know how to handle issues, you will know how to argue issues. But because it is now so and the soul's son, he doesn't drink, regardless of whether he went to school, you will get to realize that some of these cases of gender-based violence, they don't take them serious. I think it will be important when other structures, bigger structures come in and also impact so much in training the LCs and so on, such that they will know how to handle this. I think gender-based violence is too much really in our society. People are suffering, but they are suffering quietly. I will also say a failure by different actors to work together to increase safety and the dignity of the vulnerable persons is another issue. There are people we know are vulnerable, and so even in the neighborhood, you will just be seeing that a man who's drunk is butchering, fighting a woman each and every time. But sometimes people don't go for the safety of this person and the dignity. Then at the end of the day, these victims suffer it like that until, as you say, it costs them their life.
Now, as a cultural institution, you know, because most of these, the points that you mentioned, like, you know, the forced marriage, for example, the issues of submission, issues of maybe women not inheriting properties and being inherited as wives. a lot of people have mentioned that, because if you're to look at, people compare how marriages used to be those years, like, when culture was still really, really strong, and now. Now, I don't know whether it is not irony that people attribute whatever is happening today, or maybe the families breaking up, I mean, and a lot of increasing divorce rate. People are attributing it to first, women going to school, that because women have gone to school, women have become more empowered, hence they have become more stubborn, and the issue of submission has died. Then when it comes to the point of women not being able to inherit properties, I'm going to bring it on, has an individual level. Do you think that will you not face opposition from people who are rooted deeply, and will it not be like you are fighting culture which has existed long before our generations?
But I think whoever will imagine that I'm trying to challenge the culture which came even earlier than me. It is a matter of telling this person openly that the contemporary world, we're in a changing world. Therefore, things cannot be rigid like they were. Things are now changing. Therefore, I think sometimes you can try to milk an animal which does not have milk, but if you are consistent, you can milk it completely, the milk will come. Because somebody who will not want to understand this, I think you can commit yourself, explain to this person until the person, as I did say earlier, the girl child merit, I think if other families have not seen it, then to me, I will say I'm one of the person who has ever enjoyed it. That a girl child puts a home properly. Yeah. So I will say, Lugbara Kari has made pronouncement. When it is pronouncement, it means it is already moving away from those olden aspects of culture to the contemporary world, which is as of now. So the Lugbara Kari is not refusing the culture, but it is saying, as the culture exists, there are now aspects of dynamism which are there in the culture. Therefore, that must be also accepted other than objecting it completely.
One of the issues that has come up where it is being referred to also as one of the causes is bride wealth or bride price. Because the nature of bride price is you buy, for us in Mali, we call it laje. Laje, and that directly translates to buying someone. So if you buy something, it becomes a property. So in my interaction with why is this thing still, even with all the education we are getting, with all the exposure, why are people still fighting and beating up each other to the point of even killing? And then one of the answers that has been frequenting is, but we buy these women, okay, we pay animals, we exchange them painfully, and even sometimes their parents don't give you any room for negotiating or anything like that. So whatever they tell you, 20 cows, okay, in our culture we don't do that, we don't do 20 cows, but they tell you maybe 3 cows or 5 cows you have to pay, and you really look for it. And these days it is becoming extremely, we've had cases of where, I don't know, someone is being charged 50 million or something like that. So when that woman now comes, and just any point of disagreement, you find that the man will be like, after all, now I own you, so what do you want to do? What do you want to say? That kind of thing. So what is your comment on bride price as a leading cause to gender-based violence?
Just as I said earlier, it all comes with who this person is. Because to me, I would say paying bride price is an appreciation to the parents of the girl. The numbers do not matter. Because if you have got love, and if again the money is there, the wealth is there, you give what you appreciate equal to the person you are picking. But again, if now you do not have, I think people also need to understand that he has contributed what he has. But a case where somebody begins to equate a human being to animals paid or bride price, I think to me, as an individual and as a member of Lugbara Kari, I think that's not how it goes. Only that we're saying education as per is very important. It has also come up now with other aspects of marriage where the culture is not taking it more seriously. That is these aspects of introduction, these aspects of wedding. I think could be wedding because you are paying here something. There's introduction, which becomes costly, and so on. But I think you are also part of these ladies who should also go around saying sometimes these introductions are not okay because it becomes more costly. Now the person has paid bride price. He has to put in some money for introduction. At the end of the day, you are saying you're educated, you are becoming small time, you're also a bit arrogant, emancipated. At the end of the day, I think somebody will get drunk, not because of alcohol, because of some of these issues, and they begin to talk that nonsense. But I think it is not really that animals can equate to human beings. That does not exist. Yeah.
Yeah. So connecting to culture still. We've talked about the bride wealth. We've talked about that. I'm going to take us back to the point of submission. Submission versus women empowerment. I know you're a teacher. You're teaching girls so that they can be empowered. Then at the same time, also on the side of our tradition. So according to you, and also church, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you're a Christian.
I'm a Christian.
Okay. So we can talk about that. So if you're a Christian, you'd also see that in church, biblically, the point of submission is preached. So how would you comment, or how would you connect women empowerment and submission? Because these days there's another brand new form of abuse where it is blamed on women going to school. Okay. If a woman goes to school, it is assumed, or it is said, that most of them end up becoming very stubborn. They don't respect their husbands. They become uncontrollable and that kind of thing, and the point of submission is not there. So what do you think entails submission culturally? I'm going to say culturally, and maybe you being a Christian and also you being an educationalist, how would you relate this?
Me, I would say somebody begins to look more stubborn when the person has gotten exposure. And all these, majority of men have been exposed. The exposure of women emancipation is a recent thing. I will say openly around this NRM regime. Exposure. So therefore, this makes men not to feel well because an educated person, there's always that assurance that you want to equate yourself with me. You want to be stubborn at home. But that's not stubborn really. It is now being exposed. You have been, particularly for the Lugbara, this has just been a situation where somebody is submissive. Much as the Bible talks about submissive, the Bible does not emphasize on somebody becoming a slave. Submission, the Bible preaches, is not becoming a slave stepped on. It's saying accord some discipline and respect. I think the Bible also says, the Bible does not say, women, you love your husband. The Bible says, men, love your women. Women, be submissive to your husbands. Not so. But that does not mean that submissiveness is where the woman becomes a total slave, is stepped on, and everything is done. The rights are violated. No. So when somebody begins to imagine that sending women to school, no. Value for a lady is education. And when that value is there and this lady is taken to school, if it is not directly helping the family here where she's married, of course, the parents, the family down there from the lineage of the parent will be helped. So you can't just rise today and begin to say girls should not go to school, women, married women should not upgrade. If they are upgrading, they are going to become like this, they are becoming stubborn. No, it depends. But I think we needed to have trust in our women because in other places, a woman goes to work this side, a man goes to work this side. At the end of the day, in the evening, they're together. They live normal. But that's why I said we needed to really go and sensitize the communities more and more about this. And sometimes these mistakes are made by these men. You will say, how? If you know that you are not educated, why would you want to marry an educated person? You suffer. Eh? You are uneducated, your level is low, you want to a degree holder. You suffer it. I mean, I was not going to say something about it.
So according to you, we should get, like, as a man, you should get a woman of your
level.
Mm.
It is important to get your level because something above your level now brings in conflict, and the conflict ends up with the violence at home.
Mm.
So I will say, if my community, the Lugbara community, is thinking a paid up girl at school ends up being stubborn and begins to be arrogant, you don't pay. Or you marry your level, or below your level, such that you practice whatever. But to me, generally, paying a woman to go to school, even if married, accessing for her, upgrading is very important. It depends. Not all women are bad. There are those particular ones who will change character. Not all. One frog will not make all frogs to be blamed in a well or in a river.
That has been in depth. Where you're able to share with us your thoughts connecting to women empowerment versus the family structure, or what people have in mind, connecting to how empowered women actually are. So connecting to that, what do you think, according to you, TOPS has the leading cause of gender-based violence? Okay, what do you think, both at a personal level and with your experience with Lugbara Kari, what do you think TOPS, what are those causes that you think top the list when it comes to why gender-based violence exists?
Generally, I would say gender-based violences exist, to me, majorly in families where people are not highly educated. Education is having an aspect. Then some of these gender-based violences are because of the groups, the peer groups in which people stay. Because somebody will come around and begin to influence the other members of the group where they are, and begins to tell them, you see, ABCD is ABCD. If my wife does this, me, I will do this, I will do this. Those with a small mind will take it up and begin to go and practice it. So there are cases where the communities who are lowly educated, the communities who, of course, always based on education. If you're educated, you'll know what is right and what is wrong. But if you are not properly educated, you will always be suspicious. I think majorly gender-based violences here, I look at it, I did say that it is a violation of specific rights of people. And these rights are many. There's rights to associate freely, rights to education, rights to free, of course, free education, rights to take decisions, and so on. If all these are all denied, the rights to feed well, and so on, if all these are denied, then at the end of the day, we say, this person suffers psychologically, this person suffers emotionally, and sometimes it ends up with the physical, as you say. Of course, we submitted that this is gender-based violence. Much as it may not be breaking somebody's body directly, but where somebody is psychologically not free, also has its aspect of human beings.
Okay, so taking us back to the issue of domestic, because I know most of our discussion has been under the form of domestic violence, which is a form of gender-based, which is somehow the umbrella. So connecting to gender-based violence, I mean connecting to domestic violence in particular, what do you think is the leading cause in the line of family that
I will say that you see sometimes some men will open up when they're drunk. Therefore, I rate alcoholism is also part of that aspect of domestic violence. Much as there are issues which could be shared, amicably. But some people go and put on alcohol. You know, you lose your mind when the brain is intoxicated. The person comes home, instead of trying to sit down to ask a question, at the end of the day, it turns to be a different thing. But I would say it is a misunderstanding of not agreeing to sort issues amicably. Of course, where a man thinks is the head of the family, begins to underrate the woman and begins to command and shout on this woman, disrespect. Of course, the woman will open up. She's not muscular. She's so verbal. She opens up. When she opens up, then it goes to the physical aspect, which turns to be domestic violence, which has the impact on the children. Because at the end of the day, if mommy moves away from home because of these tortures, the children will be traumatized. They will continue to suffer it. I think it impacts also in their learning system, because each and every time as they're at school, they will be thinking, mom is not at home, who's going to cook food and so on. So it has really alcohol. I rate alcohol, ignorance, lack of misunderstanding, accepting to agree that we are at a mistake is that. You know, for us men, we do not quickly accept that we have done a mistake. For us, we always say it is right, and yet we are wrong. So we are, in fact, the perpetrators majorly of this domestic violence in our families. Just because of influence from friends, intoxication by this alcohol, and always thinking I'm bigger than I'm the family head.
Yes, and I cannot.
And sometimes it is very defensive. Your wife hears that you are having a relationship outside there. Instead of explaining the truth that truly, Mama, I have a relationship, outside, you go for violence. You see, that has really separated many. It has caused a lot of violence at the families. Yes.
So most of the examples that you have been giving connects to violence against women and girls. I think that is what you're being mainly the emphasis.
Yeah, my emphasis is mainly on that.
Yes. Now I want to switch us a little bit to talk about violence against the boy child or violence against men. Yeah. So what do you think? Are men going through some of these things? And what do you think are some of the forms of violence that men and boy children are going through in a domestic setup?
Some men feel some other rights of theirs have been denied. You know, a right of a man in bed, when it is denied, this man feels there's violence against him. Those are the aspects. But I think sometimes men also try to sigh off, to report also this. They don't expose it. And they do it, they suffer it quietly. You will tolerate it, and with the time you go by it. That is exactly. But with the boy child, this violence is a majorly seen when the boys are not staying with their biological parents. I don't see it so much, because when a boy stays with, like me, I've got my boys. They are a little bit stubborn. One has even just opened and said he is a DJ. He doesn't want to go to school. He's always at home there, and so on. I tend to, it tortures me, because I see him as my generation next. Now that is not in school. If time will come that I age up, I will expect a soap and a soga from him. If he doesn't go to school, how will I get it? So I think those are a few of the violences or emotional kind of attacks we have. But I think men tend to hide it so much. They tend to hide it so much because it looks embarrassment if you go around telling friends that my wife is like this, my wife yesterday beat me, my wife slapped me. Men cannot talk that. So they suffer it quietly. It is there amongst them, but they suffer it quietly.
Yeah. Why? So why do you think it is so hard for men to like open up? Is it biological, or is it trained? I don't know.
Men look at it as a defeat. Giving an impression outside there that she has some thoughts as it is like it is a defeat, because obviously people will begin to laugh at this money. You just imagine, so then they suffer it like that. There are many men who are suffering in the hands of women of their rights. So they cannot do it because they feel they are defeated and they always sigh off about it.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Please.
Thank you so much,
please,
Honorable, for being part of this.
Please.
I would really, really love to have you again. We'll probably talk about other things next time.
Yes, please.
But this has been great. You've been very insightful, and you've represented Lugbara Kari excellently.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So thank you so much for the message that you've shared. And, you know, our aim for this is to facilitate dialogue. We want people to be able to talk about these things, because we believe that if we start talking about it, one person will hear, they will also share with the second person. By the time we realize 10 people have heard it, and that is how we slowly start to, you know, create the change. We are not saying tomorrow West Nile will be free of gender-based violence, but it begins, you know, it begins with, you know, one step at a time. So now you have shared with us a lot, and as we wrap this up, I would request you to maybe look into the camera as you talk to our viewers out there, especially someone who is maybe going a victim. We talked about men being shying off, not sharing what is there in their hearts or seeking for help, which is a bad thing, because, you know, sometimes it leads to suicide. By the way, when you look at the suicide rate and mental health, you know, depression, men are actually more victim when it comes to that. So I think because, according to me, because of failing to open up and seeking for help. So how would you advise someone who is there in silence? It could be a man, it could be a woman, and they are not able to seek for help. What would you tell them?
Me, I think I will advise,
You could
a matter of
look at
advice,
them.
I will advise that such kind of persons needed to open up. When they begin to realize a case of harassment, for example, there are cases of harassment which are done in workplaces, in organizations, by bosses. And when you begin to see tweeted that the utterances and the touches of somebody who is your boss or your subordinate to begins to happen, I think it is important to report other than to suffer it at a later time, because such a person can sexually harass you. Then at the end of the day, have it, you succumb to it because you are shy, then you end up getting HIV/AIDS. I think it doesn't look good. Therefore, I will say that we needed to act on these threats and reduce these threats. And we should really come in the aid of those who are vulnerable, who are likely to suffer from this. And lastly, as I said, the risk formula is risk is equal to threat times vulnerability over capacities. We must give capacities. Yes. Risk is equal to threat times vulnerability over capacities. We must give capacities to these people, vulnerable people. They must be with the capacities to strengthen themselves to stand against these violations, which I call risk. Risk is a specific violation or damage, such that we have a better place to live without gender-based violence. And I only wish that tomorrow next, this is done in various local languages within our region, such that we reach down to some of these people.
To the grassroots. Yeah, I really second that. So thank you so much, Honorable. Thank you for accepting our invitation, for being part of this today. And thank you, our viewers. I hope you have learned a lot from Mr. Aguta Fred. And yeah, I hope you've learned a lot. So you can share with us in the comment section what you think about all that we have discussed today. And yeah, you can join us next time again. Thank you so much. God bless.